Welcome everyone to this explainer from Forge College. Today, we're jumping right into something I find absolutely fascinating: quantifying scalability enhancement and module synthesis. We constantly hear about Web3 systems being incredibly fast, right? But how do we actually prove that mathematically? Well, we're going to explore these technical blueprints together to see exactly how network scalability is measured and, more importantly, proven. To set the stage, let's briefly rewind to our previous lesson on optimizing network throughput with ordered execution. Remember the sheer chaos of a baseline network without ordering? Transactions just flying everywhere, causing massive retransmissions. Then, we brought in our intervention, proof of history-aligned pre-ordering. We saw how grouping those transactions turned that total chaos into smooth, organized execution. We know it feels faster, but today we move from just feeling it to actually proving it with cold, hard numbers. Okay, let's dive right into this. Here is our testing protocol, or blueprint for today. We're going to cover core scalability metrics, then the SEI master formula, followed by the Python recipe, mapping out a reproducible workflow, and finally, decoding the results.
Part 1. Core scalability metrics. Let's figure out exactly what instruments we need to measure blockchain performance.
So here's the million-dollar engineering question. You write the code, you deploy the system, and man, those logs scroll by really fast on your screen. You might sit back and think, sure, we built it, but how do we mathematically prove it's actually faster? Because let's be real, we can't just rely on fast-scrolling terminal screens. We need undeniable data-backed proof. Our first crucial instrument is sustained throughput. Think of this as your raw processing power. Basically, it's the average rate of transactions committed per second over fixed time windows. I like to think of it like a fast food drive-thru. Sustained throughput is literally just counting how many cars successfully pick up their food and drive away every single minute. It's brute force capacity. If the baseline drive-thru handled 9 cars a minute and our new, highly organized drive-thru handles 24 cars a minute, well, throughput has undeniably gone up. But hey, throughput alone isn't the whole story. That brings us to our second metric: consensus delay. This is the time required per batch to actually reach agreement. And we measure this in 2 very specific ways: the median, which is your typical everyday speed, and the P95, the 95th percentile, which is your worst-case scenario latency. Going back to our drive-thru analogy, the median is how fast a typical customer gets their meal. The P95, that represents that one unlucky person stuck at the window waiting forever. And let's face it, nobody likes a drive-thru that usually takes 2 minutes, but randomly takes 20 minutes for one burger. Consistency is just as important as raw speed.
Section 2. The SEI master formula. This is our ultimate grading scale.
Looking at the source material, we find this absolute beauty: the Scalability Enhancement Index, or SEI. It's a composite metric. It basically takes your fractional rate gain, so how much your throughput multiplied, and scales it by the inverse of your throughput variability. In plain English, it rewards the system for getting faster, but rigorously checks to make sure things are actually stable. A score well above 1 tells us we have a really robust, reliable improvement. If it's hovering near 1, well, that might just be statistical noise. Let's talk about that denominator for a second, because its entire job is penalizing jitter. I kind of love this. It's basically ensuring the blockchain doesn't have too much caffeine. Because think about it. If the network suddenly processes 500 transactions in 1 second, but then totally freezes for 3 seconds, that is terrible for network stability. Wild, unpredictable bursts of speed just ruin the user experience. The SEI formula mathematically punishes that kind of erratic behavior, which forces us to focus on smooth, sustained performance. Moving on to Section 3, the Python recipe. Time to turn raw data into actual metrics. So how do we process all this? We use a very clean, modular Python recipe to transform millions of time-stamped events into crystal clear metrics. Step 1, we load the logs. Just pull in the raw CSVs and make sure the timestamps are perfectly formatted. Step 2, we chop that data into fixed 10-second windows and compute the throughput for each window, which helps smooth out any micro fluctuations. Step 3, we compute those delay statistics, finding that crucial median and that punishing P95 worst-case scenario. And finally, step 4, we feed the whole shebang into our formula to calculate the SEI. Now this is where it gets fun. Let's look at what happens when we actually run this recipe on a benchmark, comparing our chaotic baseline to our pre-ordering setup. The script spits out a fractional rate gain of 2.7. No way, right? That means pre-ordering gave us a massive 2.7 times sustained throughput increase. The network capacity literally nearly tripled on the exact same hardware just by organizing the transaction queue better. But remember, we don't just care about throughput. We got to check the delay stats. And the script hands us this beautiful number, 28.6. That is a solid 28.6% reduction in the median consensus delay. And it gets better. The P95 worst-case delay dropped from 420 milliseconds down to 260 milliseconds. So not only is it drastically faster, it's significantly more reliable at the tail end. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly how a professional, defensible scalability statement should sound in an engineering report. You don't just walk in and say, hey, it's way faster now. No, you state the exact conditions. You say, under identical hardware and traffic patterns, enabling pre-ordering produced a sustained throughput increase of 2.7x while reducing median consensus delay by 28.6%. P95 delays also improved from 420 milliseconds to 260 milliseconds, indicating tail latency benefits. That right there is music to an engineer's ears. It's factual, it addresses throughput and tail behavior, and it is 100% backed by data. All right, Section 4. Reproducible workflow. Let's talk about bulletproof methodology. If you want to make your claims truly bulletproof and prove your data isn't just a fluke, you've got to follow a strict 8-step reproducible workflow. You define the baseline explicitly, like what exact code were you running? You collect synchronized logs. You aggregate them into those fixed 10-second windows. Compute the core metrics and the SEI. Then you absolutely must validate statistical significance. That means running at least 3 trials and calculating a 95% confidence interval. That is what separates science from guesswork. Then you create diagnostic plots, write your qualified claims, and finally, list any potential confounders like network weather or cold caches. Section 5. Decoding results. Time for a quality assurance check. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that this table is basically your diagnostic manual for spotting false positives. We look at the measurement pattern to find out what's really going on. If throughput is up and both median and P95 delays are down, jackpot, you have a robust scalability gain. But if throughput is up, the median is flat, and the P95 goes up, those gains are likely just from aggressive batching and you are risking terrible tail latency. And if throughput is only slightly up, but jitter is through the roof, that indicates severe instability. And honestly, you need to go back to the drawing board. So let's put this into practice. Consider this question. You write a log that says throughput is up, but your worst case delays, your P95, are actually longer. Is this a win? The answer is a definitive no. A throughput gain without improved tail behavior means you're probably just saturating your resources. You're causing back pressure, not achieving true consensus efficiency. It's literally like widening a highway, but causing a massive bottleneck at the exit ramp. Doesn't really help anyone get home faster, right? Section 6. Synthesis and next steps. Let's wrap up these blueprints with a final debrief. If there is one primary takeaway you carry with you from all of this, let it be this. Transparency is absolutely key. The SEI is a fantastic heuristic for ranking different network configurations for sure, but nothing, and I mean nothing, replaces raw metrics, statistical validation, and absolute transparency. When you make a scalability claim, hand over the raw data, hand over the aggregation code, list the exact things that might have skewed your results. Invite other people to reproduce and challenge your claims, because ultimately that is how strong decentralized networks are truly built and verified. Which leads me to leave you with this final, provocative thought. Everything we looked at today was in a controlled benchmark. But as we move from local benchmarks to live, cluster-scale nodes spread all across the globe, how will unpredictable, real-world network latency challenge these carefully calculated metrics? That is exactly the kind of complex, fascinating problem we'll tackle next in Advanced Solana Concepts. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. I highly encourage you to visit Forge College to check out more courses and Web3 deep dives from Forge College. Until next time, keep optimizing, keep questioning, and keep building.